Start a business.
We're trying to save lives.
He
You said
said
start a business.
business.
The priority is to save lives. Hi, we're Team Glowscope. We're one of the BME teams this spring semester for the Design Expo.
So the problem that we're trying to solve is we are trying to increase accessibility to laparoscopic procedures in low to middle income countries because currently laparoscopic procedures are very expensive.
Because the alternative of open surgery is riskier and there's a longer recovery time. And so by having more people having access to this minimally invasive surgery, which is basically just 3 holes in your stomach instead of a large incision, they could have this life-saving procedure done.
Okay, so to come up with our idea, we had to conduct a lot of interviews, and one interview was held with a surgeon that goes abroad, and specifically she works in Rwanda, and she was saying with these communities, it's really important to be able to do the most with what you have. So we were thinking, what if we combine an endoscope with a laparoscope, so that way they have one device that can serve many purposes. So that's kind of how we went with the idea. We have a flexible endoscope, and we're trying to see, can we turn this into a rigid scope, so that way we can have both types of procedures with one device.
I think the most interesting thing about our idea is that we are able to combine 2 different procedures together. So there's the endoscopy portion of it that can be converted into a laparoscopy procedure. And this has never been done before, so we are really trying to increase the accessibility in terms of the cost, but also in terms of what they can use this device for. Traditionally, when people talk about innovating medical devices, we tend to think more in like a high income country perspective, especially being students in the United States. You know, when you think of innovation, you think of, you know, how can we make this even more fancy rather than why don't we make it more simple to make it more accessible and reach a broader audience. And I think that really ties into a lot of our backgrounds because, you know, growing up, we've all been exposed to various different cultures and have heard about how the healthcare system outside of the US is so drastically different. And I think people don't really think about that very much when designing medical devices.
We fought a lot. This is where the conflicts now change. But we did have a lot of unique ideas for the team name. We wanted something catchy, something that like was, you know, like stands out. So we went through a lot of iterations. We came up with Glowscope, glow meaning like the light, glow meaning global, scope being scope in this term, like we're using endoscope and laparoscope, so it's just unlimited. Yeah. Like talking to these surgeons in person was a really cool experience. We got to go to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and talk to one of our surgeons, and she really walked us through like how the scope works. Like if I turn my light this way, I can see this way. We were able to hear opinions and like, oh, I don't like how this feels, maybe it's too small in my hand, or it's too big, it's too heavy. So different insights like that you wouldn't normally find online doing research was really cool to learn.
The main thing that we want to address with communities in low to middle income countries is making the device accessible, so it's very much related to the cost. And that's in our design through the use of LEDs to replace the halogen light bulb in the original scope, and then also using phone cameras or other cheaper cameras that are not typically used with the laparoscope.
Yeah. In addition, we have an attachable scope that can be swapped out, and we want to have them in different lengths, so that way we can use them on adults and also pediatric patients. And this also makes it a lot easier for them to sterilize or do back-to-back surgery, so that way they can just swap it out and go back into surgery instead of having to wait for it to sterilize through a whole autoclave process or whatever chemical sterilization they go through. I think something we've discovered about each other is just like the way we think is very different, and the way we communicate these ideas are very different because I don't know, like I'm pretty good at just like sketching my idea, but then some of us are really good at just saying it out loud, and I just can't visualize it. So it's just like finding a common ground, I think, has been like the challenging part, but I don't know, you're all brilliant.
Okay, I feel like that leads to argument, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that sometimes when we argue, we end up coming up with something that's like actually really amazing. And you know, one might think like, oh, arguing isn't a good thing for a team, but I think we do it in a very constructive way.
Yeah, it's like conversations,
yeah.
not so much fights.
I personally loved designing like brainstorming all the different ideas because we could get like crazy ideas of how we could solve this problem. I thought it was the most entertaining part of this process.
Yeah, I think the most entertaining part was just being able to speak to such a wide variety of surgeons. I think outside of this class, we wouldn't really have had the opportunity to do that, and we got a lot of valuable user information from that.
Because like we had like a lot of different designs, and then having to say, yeah, this isn't going to work, even though like that design is very unique and would probably like be beneficial. It just like would be like it was difficult to have so many ideas and then having to cut down to our top 3.
Recently, Apple released this device called the Apple Vision Pro. It's essentially just like a VR headset, but allows you to like kind of interact with your virtual world while still like being able to see the actual, you know, things around you. So my idea was, what if we get the Apple Vision Pro and be able to, you know, complete the procedure with the monitor just being like in the screen, like on the headset, rather than having an actual physical monitor. But I mean, that is a pretty crazy idea, and since we are trying to keep this cost low, that wasn't really feasible, but yeah.
I think Paloma had some really good ones too.
So laparoscopic surgeries are a gas. They need CO2 to inflate the abdomen, so like the instruments could like work there. And so I was thinking of like different ways that we can eliminate that from the laparoscopic tower. So one of them was like, instead of inflating your stomach, we're gonna be using a hook, put it in your abdomen and like lift that up like a tent, which is done. This isn't something that I completely invented, but then also incorporate like the monitor to that hook. So like it'll be all incorporated and integrated into one system. And then my other idea to replace the gas insufflator was to use a computer as the monitor, and then as it starts to overheat, like the fans, the air created there could be used as the air used to inflate the abdomen. Was that sterile? Maybe not, but it was out of the box.
Play with
We've
our
been
hands.
like going on Amazon and just looking for anything that kind of resembles what we want to do. So we bought like a flexible endoscope, and I think it's used for like, what is it used for? It's
Plumbing.
like
For
plumbing.
plumbing,
Yeah. But essentially it completes the same function with what we're trying to do. So we're kind of trying to like build around that, seeing if we can come up with something functional to prove our idea and see if it works.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think our biggest method right now is just thinking of things that resemble it as much as possible. Like Lucas was saying, for example, like telescopes too. We're trying to build our own scope using lenses. I was thinking about lazy Susans, like those tables that spin, because I like the rotating mechanism from that. So just kind of like being inspired from everything that's around us.
Start a business.
We're trying to save lives. He said start a business.
business.
The priority is to save lives.
Well, I think that the main thing that we hope for at the end of this is just to create something meaningful. Like this process has been so long, but you know, it's just to see it narrow down into something like that we can physically hold and something testable is just like, I guess what we're all hoping for, something. Yeah. Yeah, can we be silly or no?
Gonna solve is that shit.
Like, we have weekly bonding events.
We want to win at the expo.
We
picked.
were, yeah.
we picked our group.
Yeah.
Why would you pick each other?
It's our friends. Besties.
Friends?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's
Be
their
scared,
name?
No,
bro,
they
be scared,
should watch
bro.
out
Hey,
for
can we
us.
name drop them?
No.
Oh, well, it's a compliment. They're really good.
Well,
Okay.
we do have a lot of amazing teams in here,
They're-
so they keep us on our toes.
Yeah. We have identified our competition. Be
That's a little quick, yeah.
careful what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I really hate this group.
You hit the
Good.